It's time to punish once again. Hey everyone, welcome to Prince the Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with the Punisher Warzone. So, this is another Punisher movie. We did the first one a while back. Let me see if I can find exactly when that was. It was like months ago at this point, I believe. But we did the first Punisher movie. Well, actually, not even the first one. The first one I think was with Dolph Lundgren in the '80s. The first more modern one with Thomas Jane. And I believe that this one was supposed to be a sequel to that, but Thomas Jane wasn't able to return or just didn't want to return or whatever happened. And they ended up kind of shifting it into like a soft reboot of sorts. Um, which is pretty interesting. Let me see here. And it makes me think that this is going to be a little different than the first one. Okay, so yeah, the first one we reacted to back in June. And the movie is kind of like the first movie, at least. I don't know what this one's going to be like comparatively. Was basically just this big revenge story to a degree. Because the character, the Punisher, I can't remember the character's name right now, but his family was killed and everything, and he went out to get revenge on the people who did it. There was a little bit of comedy thrown in, a little bit of levity, but not a huge amount. It was still pretty serious, and it was obviously very action packed and had a lot of commentary that specifically spoke out against police brutality and corruption and overreach and stuff like that. Really big topics that are unfortunately controversial. They shouldn't be because everybody should be against that kind of stuff. Police corruption and, brutality and everything. But unfortunately, there's people who defend the police in those kind of matters, and it's really fucked up. Um, and I talked about last time, I believe I talked about in the last movie, that it's like there's kind of a little bit of a humorous aspect to things of like all these fans of Punisher, like having Punisher logos on their car and stuff with like in support of the police and everything. And it's like you do know the Punisher is very anti-cop, right? You do know that's kind of the point, right? It's always confused the shit out of me because it's like even before I saw any of these movies, I knew that because it's what the character's basically about. It's like even I knew that much. And the last movie definitely just really went into that, really confirmed that. Now, I don't know what is going to be different about this. I don't know who the different actor playing him is. Um, Frank Grillo, I believe, played him in the series, so I don't think it's him in this one. I think he was him in the series. I don't know who it is playing him. I don't know who else might be in this one. I don't know if it's going to reset the plot or if it's going to be like some point after those kind of events. I don't know. But I am very curious to see because I did enjoy the first one. I very much did. And hopefully I enjoy this one too. With a subtitle like Warzone, though, it gives me vibes that this one's going to be a lot more violent, a lot more intense. Which I'm fine with. I'm fine with action movies being very intense and violent, as long as it doesn't, rely only on that and ignore story and stuff. I'm definitely interested, and I'm interested to compare and contrast it with the last version as well. Because with the character being played by so many different actors at this point, it's interesting to see what each of them will bring to the table as this character. So maybe I'll end up liking this version more. Maybe I'll end up not liking him as much. I don't know. But we're going to find out. Also, just as a note, this is a donation reward for Venom, per usual. And if you hear me sniffling, or if you, like, if I manage to cough at any point, or you see me, like, having to wipe my nose or something, it's because at the time of recording this, I am battling a little bit of a cold. It's very minor. It's nothing too serious, luckily. It's just a little bit of a cold. I'm mostly fine. Like, you might hear it in my voice a little bit from a little bit of the stuffiness, but in terms of, like, how well I'm able to function, I can function fine. It's legitimately just a matter of, like, oh, my sinuses are a little messy right now. I have a very slight cough every now and again. Stuff like that. It's very minor. But I did just want to let you guys know, just in case anything goes down, that I am a little sick. But the fact that it's this minimal is good, because I've had a lot worse. I've had sicknesses, I've had colds where I couldn't really function at all. I could barely get out of bed. Luckily, this is super minor, and it's not anything worse than just a minor cold either. But just as always, just as a note, with the weather getting cooler and all, even though the cold isn't, like, contracted through, like, temperature change, like colder temperatures or whatnot, it does tend to float around a lot more at this time of year. Just be careful. Just be careful. And if you do get sick, take measures against it, because it's just that time of year. You know? I'm taking measures myself. I'm drinking a lot more fluids. I have a crock pot of soup going. Stuff like that. But yeah. So I think we should get on with this and see what this movie has in store for us. So let's get into The Punisher Warzone. Cutting in here real quick to remind you of all the awesome content we have on the channel. Between Monday and Friday, we have a plethora of awesome series reactions, with 2 on Wednesday. We also have movie reactions every Saturday and Sunday. I pre-record them during the week, but upload them on the weekend. And don't forget about all the awesome gaming content over on the Princess of Gaming channel. We have Baldur's Gate 3 every single day, Horizon Forbidden West every Monday and Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays are Life is Strange Double Exposure. Wednesdays and Sundays are Beyond Two Souls. And Saturdays is Nier Automata. And don't forget to click the link in the description to follow it to today's reaction. I redirect everything just due to copyright. Also, please subscribe to the channel and like this video if you want to see more awesome content such as this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's begin today's reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. This was dog shit. Like, there's a number of things I just really didn't like about this movie. But, like, as someone who's not, like, a massive Punisher fan, as someone who's not, like, super familiar with the comics and all, like, even just from the perspective of a Marvel movie, from the perspective of an action movie, from the perspective of a, I guess you would say, revenge tale, this isn't good from any perspective. Like, even if you're going into the movie just expecting and hoping for a mindless, violent action flick, I still can't say this is good at that. Because it seems like every step of this movie is so mistaken that it doesn't seem to know what it's trying to do. it doesn't seem to understand how to pace, write, direct, or just, set up a film. There's massive tone issues, and outside some of the actors who admittedly did a fine job for what they were given was crap. Like, dialogue was crap. Everything. And I looked into this, and apparently it's like, not only am I not the only one who thinks so from a fan perspective, a viewer perspective, but it seems to be kind of the reason Thomas Jane left the film. Kind of the reason it became like a reboot rather than a full out sequel. Thomas Jane left the film for creative differences because, in his words, he felt like it wasn't living up to what fans would want. And like he had this entire letter penned out, and it was like talking about like, oh, Punisher fans have already been like, starving for a really good interpretation. And it's like, as someone who did all this work, put forth all this effort for this, and did all this research into the character and everything, he couldn't like stand by and just be a part of this when he didn't agree with how it was getting done and how it was being presented. And he's not even the only one. Apparently, let me make sure I get the full name right. Kurt Sutter, who was a writer and everything, also left. He officially removed his name from credit arbitration, stating that I took my name off the movie for a few reasons. The obvious reason is because I didn't deserve credit. There was very little of my draft that stayed in the shooting script. So they're basically both saying it's like when the movie was actually shot and when the movie was actually made, it didn't like retain anything of what it was supposed to be. And I don't know, I can kind of see that. I can kind of see like the possibility of like studio influence and interference on the script and changing things constantly because it was a mishmash. The film was an absolute mishmash of a picture that didn't seem to be well connected. The story was barely there. The like you have no reason to care about Frank in this situation because this is delivered as a reboot. It's like the only bits of the backstory you see are through like very minimal flashbacks. And it's like Frank as a character is so actively unenjoyable to watch in this. Like Thomas Jane's performance in the first one was pretty good. I liked him and I sympathized with him. He felt like a good rounded character who, yeah, was a little emo, a little edgy because of what happened. But he still felt like a person. And this isn't against Ray Stevenson, but this performance was not good. He didn't feel like a person. He felt like he felt like an action video game protagonist. And I obviously don't mean that in a good way. I'm talking about like the action video game protagonists that are basically husks without a personality, who are just there to be quote unquote cool. Who it's like, it's for video games that aren't about story, aren't about character, aren't about depth, but are just there to, shoot things and look cool. That's what his character came across as here. Like I said, Thomas Jane's version was also kind of emo and edgy, but you understood why and you sympathized with that. Here, he's just like so unenjoyably edgy. It's honestly annoying, if anything. Wayne Knight is wasted. Like, you have Wayne Knight in your film and you absolutely wasted him. He's such a funny, like, great actor who's super underrated in my opinion. And he was honestly not in this enough. And he didn't really get to shine at all. And I did not like the villains at all. Billy or Jigsaw, whatever you want to call him, and James. I really did not like how they portrayed these characters. Again, I don't know like the characters in the comics or whatnot, but they were trying to go for clearly fun villains. You know what I mean? Like they were trying to make villains like the Joker or something like that. Villains who are fun and goofy and kind of like crazy to the point where it's like, super silly and enjoyable. But instead, these two were just super fucking annoying and unenjoyable the entire time. Nothing was funny, nothing was entertaining. It's just like every time I saw them on the screen, I was just kind of like groaning. And it's just like, oh, why do we have to sit through this? They weren't intimidating, they weren't interesting, they weren't fun to watch. They were annoying. And like you have this entire like attempt at an emotional plot line with with the Punisher accidentally killing an agent and then having the agent's wife and daughter be in there. It didn't work. It didn't tug at the emotional heartstrings at all. Like there was also this scene specifically where the daughter opens up this chest that the Punisher has in his base that's full of like his kids stuff. And they're talking about it's supposed to be this like emotional, like heartfelt moment, and it's not. It's so poorly handled, it's so poorly written. The dialogue is so dumb that it's just not it's not emotional. And then you have the most random inclusion in here that what was his name, McGinty or something like that. Who the fuck was that, and why was he here? He shows up like fairly early on. He's working for the bad guys. He's kind of crazy and kooky, and then he shows up one more time and just gets killed. And it's just like, what was the point of having him in this? He felt like a completely random addition that didn't amount to anything but wasting screen time. On top of that, the violence and gore in this were comedically excessive. But I don't think that's what they were going for. It did not appear to be the case. And it created this like this feeling of disconnect with it, because it felt like it was just really poorly done rather than intentionally silly. It felt like it was just like, oh, the people who made this just are terrible at these effects and at the violence. It's like the one effect where the guy's running across the rooftop and it's like clear green screen bullshit, and it's like, oh my god, that was so bad. And then it's like they just like, have heads exploding and stuff all over the place just because they can. Makes no sense, but, they do it because they can. And it just doesn't look good. It doesn't work. It's not fun. It's not entertaining. It's just distracting. And then you have like this other agent who like was formerly into drugs and stuff and is trying to go straight, but ends up working with Frank in the end. And it's like, his story was so like rushed through and mishandled. And it's just, and then you also have this other cop who's like feeding information and stuff to Frank, and he's just kind of like a goofy comic relief character. And it's like, you're trying to do way too many things, way too many character tropes, and you're not putting any effort into any of them. It's like, you already have a comedic sidekick character for Frank, and you already misused him. You didn't use Wayne Knight to his potential, and you're going to try to throw this guy in too? What? Why? And then why do you have this straight man sidekick character? What is his point? What does he add to this story? The actor did a fine enough job, but what did he actually add to the story? It just felt like this movie was not well thought out. Or, like I said, it felt like it, it was so poorly managed that it was just a mishmash of different things rather than a cohesive, consistent script. And it's so sad. It's so sad. Because the first movie wasn't like a masterpiece or anything, but I thought it was good. I thought it was enjoyable. But to see this shit, it's like, my God, no. This is not it. Like, no. I'm like shocked at how bad this was. And it wasn't even a case of like, oh, it's so bad it's good. It's so bad it's kind of fun to watch and enjoyable to make fun of and stuff. It was just bafflingly bad. I'm like, I was trying to crack jokes and stuff during the reaction whenever I could like find something to say, but it's like I was at such a loss because of how excuse me, because of how just shocked I was at how bad it was. I was at such a loss, and I couldn't figure out anything most of the time. And it's like, again with the tone thing, they tried to like throw in some levity and some jokes that just didn't work, even outside of the main bad guys. Like the one moment where it's like, um, they're at Wayne's house, and Punisher Frank leaves, and then Micro Wayne's character is like 3, 2, 1, and he comes back in, and it's like, what movie do you think this is that you would throw that kind of joke into this? Because you don't think it's an action packed superhero movie. There's no way that you think this is what it's supposed to be, and you threw that joke in there. I have a headache now. And I mean, I know it's a reboot, so like them changing the how the backstory went with Frank's family being killed, the exact specifics of it, that I'm not like horribly upset by. I just feel like you're trying to make us connect to Frank and connect to his, his pain and his trauma and stuff. Like, but you relegate his backstory to these out of focus flashback shots that are like maybe in the movie for like what, 15, 30 seconds, and we're supposed to give a shit. You don't even write the character in a way that makes him like super sympathetic or likable, or makes us like, feel bad for him. So it's like you had your one job at that point was to make the backstory sympathetic, and you couldn't even get that right. Again, this is not just like a bad Punisher movie, because I'm not the biggest person to speak on that as someone who's not a huge Punisher fan. This was just a bad movie, like from kind of every perspective. It was just so poorly made. And honestly, part of me is kind of glad that Thomas Jane left the project and didn't have his name on this movie. I would feel really bad for him if he did. And I mean, I feel really bad for all of the actors who are in this and have to have their name on this film. but at least they tried. At least the actors were putting forth effort. I can't say that about anyone else necessarily, but the actors at least seem to be giving an attempt. It's just, it just wasn't good. I just really did not like this. It was so joyless and like emotionless and dead that it's like there's nothing to have fun with, nothing to enjoy, nothing to like about it. It's gonna happen every now and again. It's gonna happen where I just come across a movie that's just that bad. But I do know that the Punisher series is well received. So much so that Frank Grillo is going to be reprising the role in Daredevil Born Again, I believe. So maybe I should check that one out. I mean, it might do a lot better. I don't know. I've heard good things, so and I do tend to enjoy Frank Grillo for the little bit I've seen him in. So yeah, maybe that would be maybe that would be better. But in the meantime, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of the Punisher Warzone? And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.